What's going on, everybody? Today, I want to talk about the fear of approach. And usually, when people talk about the fear of approach, they talk about it in a dating context, like approaching women specifically. But as you know, I talk about social anxiety, so I'm not going to talk about it in that context. I'm talking about it just the fear of approaching anybody. So this can apply to anybody, it's for anybody, because this is one of the hardest things to do if you have social anxiety. And it's one of the most necessary things you have to do. And I want to point out that, I'm sure a lot of you may be thinking, I don't really like small talk. I don't really want to talk to random strangers. I don't really care about that. But, and be honest with you, it doesn't really matter. It's something you have to do if you want to overcome your social anxiety. And the truth is that I find that a lot of people will, and I did this when I was younger, they will say they don't like small talk. They will say, "Oh, I'm a deep talker. I like to talk about deeper things." And I don't disagree with you. I'm not saying that that can't be true, but a lot of the reason why we tell ourselves we don't like small talk is simply because we're uncomfortable with it. We're just afraid of it. So that's the first thing you got to admit. You're afraid to have small talk because you don't know what to say. Now, you may also find it boring, and that's fair. But if you're going to start a relationship with anyone, it has to start out with small talk because people have to feel comfortable with you. They have to get to know you. It's unlikely people are going to open up about deeper things if they don't feel just a general sense of comfort with you. And it's still important just for your fear. So forget about whether or not you like it. The fear of being judged by people, by talking to people, by not knowing what to say in certain situations, it's really important that you start to just approach random strangers. And again, I've talked about like the fear hierarchy. You may not be there yet. You may not be ready for this just yet, and that's okay. You got to take your time. But at some point, you will have to do it. And so this is for people who are at that point. And I do want to point out that I just put out a free workbook. And one of the pages of the workbook has to do with the fear hierarchy. There are 4 or 5 other parts of this notebook. It's completely free. You can find it at the bottom of the episode. There's also a full notebook that is you have to pay for, but you get 40% off if you download the mini one. So I just want to point that out if anyone's interested in that. Okay, so let's get right into this. The most important thing for me, after you've accepted that you're just afraid of small talk and you're ready to go do this, the first thing you have to establish right away is you have to change in your mindset is you have to change this idea that you need context to talk to a random stranger. And I think for people with social anxiety especially, this can happen a lot where we feel like it's too random. It's too random to just walk up to any old person. I need to have a good reason to go up to somebody, or they're going to think I'm weird or I'm crazy or something's wrong with me. I can't just walk up to somebody. I can't just go up to someone without any context. And this is why a lot of people with social anxiety will often, you might feel more comfortable in situations where the roles are more clearly defined. For example, you go and to the cash register and you go to buy something. That can be an easier conversation because you know what your roles are. I'm here to buy something. This person is picking up. They're doing the payment process. It's a simple thing, right? Going to the pizzeria, you're going to pick up a pizza. They're going to sell you a pizza. It's not a complicated thing. You know what you're going there for. So a lot of times when we have defined roles, it feels a lot easier. And this can happen in all sorts of contexts. Even like, let's say you go to a concert, you might find it easier to talk to a random person because you already have something to talk about. You have a shared interest. Well, I know I can talk about this band. If you're at a baseball game, oh, I can talk about baseball. I can talk about the team, whatever. So there's these contexts that we look for a lot of times, especially when we have social anxiety, because we're looking for social acceptability. We're looking to make sure that what we're doing is appropriate. And we need to really throw this whole idea out. I want you to imagine you're in an open world RPG where you're allowed to do whatever the hell you want. You're allowed to talk to anybody. You're allowed to say whatever you want to anybody. Get within reason, right? Don't be insulting. Don't just go up to someone and be mean to them. But I'm talking about we have to get rid of this idea that we have to justify ourselves to a person before we can even approach. Because a lot of times that's a lot of the anxiety. There's almost like this wall between us and the outside world, or us and other people. And we feel like we have to gain entry through the wall to be even allowed in to talk to someone. So when you look at the world from that perspective, when you're out in public, it feels very isolating. It's like you're over here, the outside world's over there. Everybody, is doing their own thing, and I need permission to go talk to them. Now, again, I'm not saying you should go annoy people. I'm not saying, if people are very clearly busy, right? They're reading a book, they're on their phone, they're talking to somebody else, or maybe they just look really disgruntled, or they just clearly seem like they want to be left alone. Obviously, don't bother people if they want to be left alone. I'm talking about you're just walking around in your neighborhood and someone walks by you on the street and they seem pleasant and they seem easy. They seem like they'd be someone easy to talk to, but you feel like, well, what's the context here? How would I even start this conversation? What would I say? What would I talk about? What if they're annoyed? What if they get annoyed because I'm bothering them? We have to get rid of this whole idea. We have to look at the world as a public place, which it is. And if someone's out in public, that means they're also taking the risk that random strangers might come up to them, okay? And random strangers might just want to randomly talk to them. Now, one of the things I noticed for myself, and I've seen this with people with social anxiety, is you may feel like you don't want people to approach you, right? So because you have this wall up and you're ready to just shoo people off, you assume everybody's like that. Okay. But not everybody's like that. And even if they are, we have to understand that that's coming from our own feeling. Other people might feel that way. They'll let us know very, very quickly. If you go to talk to someone and they're not in the mood to talk, they will let you know right away. Okay. So we have to get rid of this idea, shred this idea that you need context, that you need to, be in the grocery store and, okay, there's something really up high and I can't reach it. That's a good reason to talk to someone. Or I'm at a bar and I want them to change the game to another game. That's a good reason to talk to someone. We're always looking for reasons, and this is why we're in our head so much, because we're always looking for the perfect excuse to talk to someone, the perfect justification to talk to someone. That has to be, and again, for some of us, the anxiety can be so bad, no justification will be acceptable, right? That's why for some of us, it might be hard to be at, the store, and you want to ask someone if they have something, but you're too afraid to ask even someone who works there, right? So I understand it depends on where you're at, but this general idea that we need permission, that we need an excuse, we need context, we need a reason, throw it all out. Throw it all out. If someone's out in public, that means it's fair game. You can walk up and you can talk to them, okay? And that will take a lot of pressure off. And you might be sitting there wondering, like, is that true though? Like, can I just do that? Look, everybody's going to respond differently, obviously. And there's certain cultural context that might make it different. When you're in a big city like New York City, I mean, nobody wants to talk. But you theoretically still could, right? Nothing terrible is going to happen. Yes, there are dangerous people out there here and there. But for the most part, people are just going to like grunt and move on, right? But see, I had a rude awakening when I moved upstate New York, middle of nowhere. And I'm walking around this rural town and people are just saying hello to me. And I'm from the suburbs. I'm from New York City. Like that's not really something that happens here. So, but there are parts of the world where that is the norm. That is the norm. People just talk to each other, right? And we're going to try to make that the norm. And you might be sitting there saying, but again, what if they don't want that? We can't make everybody happy. Okay, we're working on us for ourselves. We're trying to get over our fear, and we have to understand part of getting over our fear is getting rejected. So it's actually good if you go up to someone, you try to say hello to them, and they're not in the mood to talk. That's good for you because you're teaching yourself, okay, I went up to someone. They were grumpy. They were in a bad mood. They didn't want to talk, but it was fine. Like nothing terrible happened other than it felt really uncomfortable, and I moved on. Okay, but you can only get to that point if you actually experience it. You're not going to be able to like talk your way into this. You're not going to be able to convince yourself that everything's going to be okay. You actually have to experience yourself getting rejected, not internalizing it, and moving on with your day. I want to talk now about how to not internalize it, because I think this is one of the hardest things. Because a lot of times, we go out, we try it, we try to say hello. Let's start with the basic hello. You're walking down the street. You see someone approaching, they seem friendly enough. Maybe it's a nice old lady. You say hello, and she gives you like a dismissive look and just walks on by. And you're going to go, was that weird? Should I not have done that? Oh my God, was I being rude? Or does she think I'm crazy? What does she think? This is why it's important we go back to our values. I talk about values a lot because we can only rely on our values. Everybody else is going to have a different philosophy of life. My personal philosophy, and you don't have to take this, I mean, you have to come up with your own. My personal philosophy is I'm going to be friendly and I'm going to be kind to people. That's it. I go out and I try to be as friendly and as kind to everybody that I can be. Now, does that mean that everybody gives me that in return? Of course not. Of course it doesn't mean that. But guess what? That's not my problem. Okay? And this is where you have to get to. You have to understand that if your goal is I want to talk to people, I want to be friendly, I want to be cheerful and just say hi, how are you doing, and move on. Where is the crime in that? Where is the crime in that? You are being friendly. If someone doesn't want to be friendly, they don't have to be friendly. But when you internalize it, you bring it in and you go, oh, I did something wrong. I shouldn't have done that. Why? You can't be friendly to people? Of course you can. So we have to understand, we have to figure out what our values are. And again, you don't have to take mine. You got to figure out what your own are. But for me, it's I'm just going to be friendly. I'm going to be nice to people. And I'm going to see what happens. And for me, that works most of the time. Most people are friendly and kind back. I smile at people. If you're not ready to talk to people, just smile at people. And you might think, is that creepy? Is that weird? We have to just get rid of these ideas. And I understand that, look, right now, culturally, there are some situations where it feels like we can't do certain things, right? You're at the gym or you're at the park, right? And you feel like, well, if I look at someone, they're going to think I'm staring at them and they're going to think I'm recording them. And I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable. I get it. What is our goal? We're not trying to make people uncomfortable. We're trying to be friendly. You're saying hello to people and you're smiling. If someone has a problem with that, what are you going to do? You're going to live the rest of your life without approaching anyone ever? It's impossible, and you'll never overcome your fear this way. I understand that there is risk here. I'm not saying there's no risk, but generally speaking, if you approach someone with a smile on your face and kindness and compassion, they will return the favor. And again, if they don't, we go back to our values. Well, that's not a person for me then. That's not the type of person I'm trying to have an interaction with. It's not the type of person that I want to maybe potentially be friends with. We're going to be kind and friendly as much as we can, and we're going to see what comes back to us. We're going to stop trying to chase. We're going to stop trying to appease. We're going to do what we can do best and let the people who have similar values, let them find us. And if you do that, if you're kind and friendly, and you're just kind and friendly to everybody, you'll weed out all the grumpy people, and you'll find the kind and friendly people who want to talk to strangers, okay? So that's the first thing. The first thing, well, I guess that's the second thing. You want to get rid of the expectations of what the context is. And secondly, you want to figure out what your values are and understand that, yes, not everyone is going to have those values, but that is not your job. You got to figure out what kind of life you want to live, okay? So now we get to a point where if we can come to terms with that, now I have good reason to approach. I don't have to worry about context. I'm just being friendly. That's all I'm doing. And now you're ready to make the approach. Let's assume you're ready. You're like, all right, fine, fair enough. I don't have to follow any rules. I can just talk to people. What do I do? What do I say? I'm still going to feel really anxious. That's true. You're going to feel really, really anxious. You're going to feel afraid. And this is what we talk about. We're not trying to reduce the anxiety. The fear of approach, I promise you in the beginning, you're going to be terrified. You're going to feel like this is wrong. You're going to feel like you're going to screw this up. You're going to say the wrong thing. We're going to start very, very simple. So whatever's easiest for you, a smile, a wave, a hello. Pick one of those three. Start bare bones. That's all you have to do. You just walk up to 3 people every day and you're just going to say hello to them. As you start to make the approach, even before you actually do it, you find someone, you go, okay, that's the person I'm going to say hello to. you're going to start getting anxiety. The anxiety is going to try to convince you out of it. It's going to say, no, what's the context here? This is weird. What if they say no? What if they don't want to be bothered? And you're going to say, no, that is my anxiety. Whether that's true or not, it is my anxiety. At the end of the day, like, I want to get to a point where I approach, I have to understand I can't answer those questions. I can't cave to that fear. I have made up my mind. I'm going to say hello to 3 people today. So I have to go do it. The fear is going to be there. When you're first starting out, you want to make it simple. I've talked before, I generally don't like scripted responses, but since all we're doing is approaching and literally saying hello, that's what we're going to do. You're just going to say hello. You're going to walk up to someone, you're going to wave, you're going to say, hi, how are you doing? And you're just going to walk on by. You're not even going to sit to continue the conversation because we're not there yet. You want to get used to being able to just utter something out to a person, okay? And when they respond, which I promise you 80% of the time, it's going to be, hi, I'm good. The other 20%, either they're grumpy, they don't hear you, they're not paying attention, or they're like, what? I don't know you. Here's how you're going to internalize it. You're going to go, hey, I was just being friendly. I said hello. That's not a crime. Okay. So they're allowed to have a bad day. They're allowed to be grumpy. They're allowed to not want to talk to me. That is not an indication of me. All right. I'm doing what I need to do to better myself. And I'm also just trying to spread some general kindness to the world. I'm trying to be friendly. If a person is not ready to receive that, that's on them. Okay. So we're going to understand that the job is not to make everyone like us. It's not to make sure that everybody is happy with our approach. Okay. If we're simply saying hello, we're waving, we have to understand, we have to let people make their own decisions. The next step after that, if you're ready to start, how do I start conversations? So I'm going to tell you a very quick story here. When I was 17 years old, maybe 17, 18, it was the first time I was ever on a plane. And I was going to Disneyland. This was for a senior trip after high school. And my anxiety at this point was as high as it's ever been in my life. I also had never been on a plane before, so I was terrified of the plane. We get to the plane. Now, I went to an all-boys school, okay? And we get to the plane, and half the plane is filled with kids from our school, and the other half is just, regular people, whatever. I'm sitting there next to my one friend that I had, and then across the aisle from me was this other kid who I wouldn't say he was a friend, but he was nice to me, and we got along for the most part, but he was very, very social. Like, this guy could talk to anybody at any time. And I'm sitting in my chair, and I'm trying to force myself to go to sleep. And the reason I was doing that because I was so anxious. And the reality was I didn't actually need to sleep. I just didn't want to have to talk to anyone else because I heard everyone was so like rambunctious, and it was too overwhelming for me. So I was closing my eyes. I was trying to pretend to sleep, but I wasn't actually tired. So I'm sitting next to this guy, and I'm kind of listening. I'm hearing his conversation, and he's talking to this woman next to him, or this girl next to him, probably around our same age, 17, 18, was not from our school, random person, right? And again, he could talk to anybody. And as I'm listening, I'm kind of like fading in and out. I'm starting to get tired. I'm fading in and out, but I keep waking up and I'm catching parts of the conversation. And at first I'm just like amazed that he's talking to this random stranger, like right off the bat. And I'm going, what is he talking about? Like, how is he doing this? He's been talking for like a half an hour to this same girl, and she's like cracking up. She's having a great time. And what is he doing that is so incredibly different than what I do? Like, what kind of conversation is he having? So I'm listening because, I'm always in my head. At that point in my life, I was always in my head trying to come up. Like, what do I say? What do I say? This is what we're always worried about. What do I say? What do I say? So I'm listening to this guy, and I'm like, all right, what is he saying? He must be saying this like fascinating, deep, interesting stuff. I'm listening. I'm listening. And then he says, You don't like Kit Kats? How do you not like Kit Kats? He's asking her about Kit Kats, and she's laughing. She goes, I hate Kit Kats. I like M&Ms. They're talking about candy. This is what is so fascinating that the two of them are talking about. And you know where he got that idea from? Because he had a Kit Kat bar. All right? He had a Kit Kat bar right in front of him. So that's it. And I've talked about this in past videos. We don't know what to talk about. We're in our head. Everything you need to talk about is right out in front of you. It's either in the environment or it's in the person. It's in listening to the person. Stupid conversations about absolutely nothing. But you can only have those conversations if you're actually paying attention to what's around you. Okay? So as you start to make these approaches, you've gotten past the point of hello, and now you're like, well, now what do I say? Because I don't have context anymore. You told me to get rid of context. And if I can't walk up to somebody because, I'm at the grocery store, I need help getting groceries, well, how do I just start a conversation with people? You look around you and you just, whatever comes to your mind, you just say it to the person next to you. It sounds insane. It sounds ridiculous. But the truth is, see, you have convinced yourself that there are like these rules to socializing, and that in order to get to a certain point, there's like this sort of like method. I got to say hello, then I got to say, how are you doing? And then they say how they're doing, and then I say, no more, how are you doing? We're not going to ask how people are doing anymore. The reason is because that phrase has basically become a non-phrase. It doesn't do anything, and it actually keeps you stuck, right? When you ask somebody, hey, how are you? Right? Let's say you get to that point. You can say hello, and then you go, hey, how are you? Not only are you killing the conversation, but now you're in your own head because you're saying to yourself, well, I just said, hey, how are you? They said they're good, and then I said I'm good, and now I'm stuck. I don't know what to talk about. Okay? We're going to drop all of these rule-based ideas. And I know when we have social anxiety, we like rules because it feels structured, and structure feels easier, but structure isn't free. And this is why you're stuck. So what are you actually going to do? You're going to walk around and you're going to look around you. You're either going to look around you or you're going to pay attention to what you've been thinking about that's not anxiety related. Maybe something you've been watching, maybe something you've been doing lately. Okay? But I think the easiest starting point is just look around you. What is going on? And then when you go up to somebody, you say hello, you say, how are you doing? You're going to point out something that you notice. And it could be about them. Sometimes about them is the best thing you can do. Offer a compliment. You're looking at the person and they have these really cool shoes on. And you have this thought and you go, man, those shoes are really cool. Maybe you start getting insecure. I don't have cool shoes on. I have really ugly shoes. And if I say how cool their shoes are, they're going to look at my shoes and realize how ugly they are. And then they're not going to want to talk to me. Something like that. How about you just go up to them and you go, wow, those are the coolest shoes I've seen all year. Where'd you get those shoes? I gotta have those shoes. What if you're walking up to somebody and they've got a t-shirt on of a band that you love, that you would love to go to, that you haven't gone to in years, and they have a t-shirt on, you're looking at the t-shirt and you go, man, I love that band. But now you're too afraid. But what if they don't actually like that band? Like, what if they're just wearing that because it was the only thing they had in their closet? Then I say like, oh, I love that band. Then they're like, oh, I don't actually like this band. And then it gets really awkward and whatever else your anxiety is going to tell you. You're walking around, there are things in front of you, but you can only notice them if you're out in the world. So I'm going to leave a link to another episode that I've done in the past about being present in the moment. I'm going to link that to the bottom of the episode. But what we are going to start to do after we get over the approach of just saying hello, you are going to strip all your rules, especially that asking how they're doing, okay? Because that's a conversation killer, okay? And it's also going to make you feel really self-conscious. And you are just going to pay attention to what's around you, and you are going to just say it. You're just going to say it. If you listen to your mind, it will give you things. It will tell you, like you're thinking about something when you're out in public, unless you're obviously swarmed with anxiety, you're thinking about that. Focus on what's around you. Listen to what's around you. There's a song playing, someone's blasting a song in their car, and you're walking on the street. Walk by somebody and say, I love this song. It feels so random, but they're going to have a reaction to that. Okay? We have to get rid of this idea that we need context, that we need a reason. Because if you feel like you need to have a reason to say the things that you want to say or the things that are on your mind, you're never going to say anything to anyone. And I know it's really hard and it feels really awkward. It feels really random. It feels like, again, you need permission. Let's try to do it without granting permission. Let's see how that goes. Again, I'm not talking about being rude. I'm not talking about being disrespectful. And I'm sure if you have a social anxiety, that isn't your problem. Maybe you worry about that, but I'd imagine you're the last person we have to worry about. Okay? Because it's the people who don't worry about that are doing those things. Okay? I'm not worried about you guys going out and doing something rude. Is it going to happen occasionally? Sure. But if it does, it's going to be incidental. It's not going to be intentional. Okay? So the three main things to recap here, we got to get rid of this idea that you need context, that you need a reason, that you need justification. If you're out in public and they're out in public, it's fair game. When you approach, understand you're going to feel terrified. You're going to feel anxious. And all those worries are going to come up and they're going to try to pull you back. And you're going to say, nope, those are the things that have pulled me back. I'm going to start out, we're just going to say hello. We're just going to say hello. And if people are in a bad mood, people are grumpy, people don't want to talk to you, that's okay. They don't have to want to talk to us. And we're going to really work on not internalizing this and understanding that this is just part of normal life. This is what happens this is how people make friends, right? When you go out and you see random people talking, see, this is the funny thing. When we're socially anxious, we go out and we think, how do they do it? How do they do it? Why are they allowed to do that and I'm not? Because they just took the initiative. That's all it is. They took the initiative, okay? Now, I know many of you are probably sitting there saying, no, well, some people have it easy, right? They're better looking, they're attractive, they're just smooth. It's like, do those things play a role? Sure, of course. Like someone who's attractive is probably going to get better reception than someone who's not. Just like someone who's walking around with a dog is going to get better reception than someone who's not, right? But we can't keep using those as excuses. And again, the people who judge, the people who are not going to be friendly, not going to give us a chance because of superficial reasons like that, that's good news for us. Now we know, don't bother with these people. You walk up, you be kind, you be friendly, and you find the people who will match that energy. Okay? And then as you slowly build on that, you do that every day. You do it multiple times. Every single day you go out and you say, I'm gonna say hello to 3 strangers. When you get comfortable saying hello, when saying hello gets so easy for you, it's not even a challenge anymore, then we're going to start to throw out conversation starters. The conversation starters look like asking open-ended questions based on what that person's wearing, what they're doing, maybe the music they're listening to, right? Or pointing out something that's around you and letting the person comment on it, letting the person have an idea. I know it's really scary, and again, these things feel really random, but they only feel random and scary and uncomfortable right now because you're anxious. When you get used to doing it, the fear, the awkwardness, the weirdness goes away because they're not inherently weird or awkward. They just feel really awkward. But that's a feeling we can get comfortable with. I hope you found this video helpful. Again, if you want to get a kickstart on the social anxiety, there's a mini book. I'm going to put it at the bottom of the episode. I hope you find it helpful. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you guys soon.